Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the FW Murphy Dover Precision Components webinar, and thank you for joining us. We have a great topic for you today, but before we get started, we have just a few housekeeping items. Please note that the audience mics are muted, but feel free to type in any questions you have. We have a Q&A session slated for the end to address any questions. Our moderator is FW Murphy's IoT Product Manager, Donovan Minkler. He'll compile your questions and present them to our speakers at the end of the webinar. This presentation is being recorded. It will be posted on our website and shared on our social channels. We will also send an email with a link after the event. So if there's something you want to see again, you'll be able to easily find it. So with that out of the way, I'm pleased to introduce our speakers today. We have Jay Robertson. Jay is the Director of IoT Business Development for FW Murphy Production Controls. He has been with the company for 3.5 years and has worked in the oil and gas industry for 13 years. He's a Bearcat alum who earned his bachelor's degree from Sam Houston State University. Also with us is Richard Harris, who is FW Murphy's Director of Engineering and Product Management. He began his career with the company in 1995 as a circuit board assembler, and he's worked in various roles, including warranty repair, application programming, technical services, engineering, and product management. He has a background in electronics engineering and is a self-taught programmer. And joining us from Baseline Energy Services is Bradford Remley. Brad is the president and COO at Baseline. He has 17 years of experience in oilfield services and a diverse background that includes accounting, finance, and field operations. His vision and experience prior to Baseline have been shaped by previous roles at KPMG and Archrock. He is also a graduate of Sam Houston State University. Welcome to our speakers, and I'll turn it over to Jay.
Thanks, Jessica, and thank you all for joining us. We believe that we have an exciting topic to talk about. And I'll first start and say that I get people all the time asking, what is IoT? And is this something you made up? And I'll say that you can Google it, and you'll see that IoT is an acronym that stands for Internet of Things. It's about connecting devices, which are things, over the internet, letting them communicate with us, applications, and each other. Moving on to what IoT could be, or what products you may be familiar with, is it could range from doorbell cameras that tell us when people are there or even when people are not, to smart cities, and includes everything in between. IoT adds convenience to everyday life and aims to keep us connected to each other and the technology around them. It has also helped speed up rapid innovation and making services more personalized. We move into the statistics of IoT. In 2023 study from IoT Analytics reported that IoT connected devices in 2022 grew by 18% to 14.3 billion active end devices. And in 2023, IoT devices grew another 16% to 16.7 billion active end devices. And by the end of 2030, people are forecasting, as statistics state, that the numbers could jump up to 125 billion active end devices. As I highlighted the IoT population today and what it could be in forecast, I want to pass the discussion on to Rick for him to highlight some of the past and how communication has scaled to where we are now. Rick?
Thanks, Jay. So the building blocks of the past, natural gas gathering market that we serve is somewhat unique in that it's typically a compressor or compressors in remote locations and running unattended. So the market we serve has had some kind of telemetry in the past years in place. Those technologies for connected equipment included hardwired SCADA systems or data acquisition systems, spread spectrum radios, which did a hopping effect to get from one endpoint over to where there might be infrastructure. These terrestrial solutions required the infrastructure needed to be somewhere close to the equipment, which was obviously not always possible in these very remote locations. In some cases, it could take hours to get from somewhere where there was infrastructure out to a farmer's field or some oil field where several roads and dirt roads to get to. So it wasn't always the greatest application for telemetry, and there may not even be electricity or towers for several miles to supply that equipment. So those would run off of batteries, and so also power consumption was a concern. There were cellular modems back then that were being used with limited coverage and very spotty performance. And satellite was available and still is today, but it remains expensive. But it does offer coverage in areas where terrestrial and cellular infrastructure was not available. But today, things have changed quite a bit. So the building blocks for today and in the future, cellular coverage propagates out to more and more regions. We're now able to reach further and collect more data than we ever have before. And cellular costs and the storage of that data in the cloud, which is a new term for everyone, has also come down over the years. A recent FCC map from 2021 showed that 4G LTE coverage had very few spots without overlapping coverage. So quite a bit of the holes that used to exist have now been closed up, and you have not only cellular coverage but choices. With an IoT gateway that can use two SIM cards, it's also possible to automatically determine the most reliable network coverage and bandwidth from popular carriers like AT&T and Verizon. This is important because even when coverage is available, it may be congested or unreliable at a given time of the day, leaving you without connection to your equipment. So having a device that determines the most reliable carrier and bandwidth ensures that the gateway and the equipment is always connected. Now compressors can be moved from site to site without having to perform a spectrum analysis test to determine the coverage, or set it and forget it and find that the coverage is spotty at certain times of the day, or unreliable. And the gateway will always choose the most reliable method for transmitting, giving you a little more peace of mind. When those carriers aren't available, you still have satellite as a fallback option or an insurance policy to stay connected with your equipment. And also, in recent years and for the future, in addition to the over-the-air communications, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technologies allow us to get connected to the operator and to the equipment while on site. This has given them greater flexibility to interact with the equipment, the data being collected, and even the internet through Wi-Fi hotspots when cell phone coverage is spotty. With a mobile app in hand, an operator can move about the equipment and monitor information instead of being tethered to the control panel. This can help speed up operations and give the operator the information that they need right in the palm of their hand as they try to diagnose problem situations with equipment that is possibly on the other side of the skid from the control panel. But I mean, there's data being collected, and then there's what are we doing with the data in the energy sector. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jay to talk about FW Murphy's M-Link.
Thanks, Rick. You know, as Rick's talking about just the power of IoT and how it's always connected, in our case, we're consuming millions of data points every single day, every single second of every day in the world's largest energy basins. While data collection is not new to the energy sector, making sense of the data and using it to solve the challenges in the industry is becoming more important than possible. Bringing data into the cloud, we are now capable of decoupling the data. These complex algorithms can analyze, process the information, provide insights, and even perform decisions in the cloud that can be deployed back to the edge to adjust equipment operation for optimal performance. Past systems were made up of equipment that had no operational knowledge of each other or other connected equipment around them. These monolithic designs are becoming more integrated both at the edge and in the cloud. The result is not just status and trending, but a path to determine operational effectiveness. This is the beginning of the AI future that we've all been hearing about and we've been going to conferences and understanding about. We aren't just looking at IoT as a tool our customers are consuming data or this data transformation. We also believe companies can leverage IoT to be incorporated into their ESG mission. Talking about ESG, most people on the call likely know the term or the acronym, but if not, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It first appeared in the United Nations in 2004 report, and it was titled Who Cares Wins. The report encouraged business stakeholders to embrace the ESG long term, including managers, directors, investors, analysts, and brokers. These three pillars or metrics are more about the accountability in the corporate landscape, but some underlying themes are specifically important to the energy sector. The green revolution has not replaced fossil fuels, but certainly created a stigma and a target on the backs of energy companies. Now that we have all of the meaningful data, How do we use it to shape operational focus and direction to achieve corporate goals, such as the ESG metrics? The data collected by IoT can be used to demonstrate performance improvements, emissions reductions, and improve the lives of our real assets, our people. To unpack the first of the three pillars, I want to bring back Rick into the discussion to highlight the E in ESG. Rick?
Thank you. Yeah, so how do we impact the E in an ESG, or the environmental piece of the pillars? Let's focus on a couple of factors that contribute to the carbon footprint that can impact with IoT. Greenhouse gas emissions, specifically carbon dioxide and methane, are significant parts of the total carbon footprint picture. By reducing or eliminating these fugitive emissions, we can have a huge impact. Well, how can MLink do that? MLink provides, or any other IoT gateway, MLink provides our customers with insights into their equipment status and ensures they're optimizing performance. That's key, making sure that the equipment's running correctly, not just the emissions, but the overall operations of the equipment. This is directly correlated to our customers' direct and indirect emissions footprint. So when we talk about direct, what are we talking about? Directly, planned stop events and preventative maintenance reduce the number of times a gas compressor must be blown down to repair or retest. Every time that you do a blowdown, which is required to restart, that's emissions that are released into the atmosphere unless there's a sophisticated system to capture that. Anytime that the equipment stops from an unplanned shutdown, you're going to have flare events or some other situation, dumping of the gas in order to isolate the piece of equipment from the upstream. Managing these events can reduce flare events from associated processes as well. But IoT can provide valuable information to adjust the equipment and resources to prevent an unplanned shutdown, or even keep the unit running so that it does not enter into a condition that could cause a shutdown. So some specific control strategies that allow the equipment to work together and ride through any kind of anomalies, either upstream or downstream, in an effort to prevent the actual stopping of the equipment. Indirectly, if companies reduce these unplanned maintenance and callouts, there's less miles driven on the road, thus less on-highway emissions are produced. With the added benefit of MLink's onboard GPS, operators can maximize their day by planning their routes and resources and making sure that they're being the most efficient that they can be for that equipment that may be entering into a condition for shutdown, or is currently operating at suboptimal performance. They can put that all into a route plan, determine where this equipment is, find an operator who's in the area of the equipment, and put the right skill sets in the right places to provide that support. Again, trying to manage this unplanned downtime. So what is unplanned downtime? Well, there are a lot of costs associated with that. Even with advanced warnings, IoT feedback for unplanned downtime can eliminate multiple trips to the site to find root cause, retrieve parts, and make repairs and get back up and running. So just looking at this infographic, for instance, an operator is outperforming a PM, for instance. There's a malfunctioning valve, but he doesn't know this yet because it hasn't entered the control limits that may have been set up for it. And so as far as he's concerned, he's performing an oil change or some other event that was on his list. And this device is imminent for a failure, but he's not being told anything about that. So he leaves the site after performing his preventative maintenance. The valve now fails. He's returning to the site, second visit. He's trying to diagnose the failure mode. And at that point, he may or may not have repair parts available. So he has to order those repair parts, leave the site, return back to the site, perform that operation. Again, all these not only have time down, which is a huge cost, but they put this operator behind the windshield, making him unavailable to other applications. And we talked about the emissions from on highway. And now he's got the unit repaired and it's back up and running. So, I mean, this is just the costs on the top line there, and the bottom line for unscheduled events and the personnel are a huge thing. I'm going to call him Brad, who's our guest panelist. Brad, from an operator's point of view, how impactful is unscheduled downtime for your customers, and how do you use telemetry today to reduce these events?
Yeah, thank you, Rick, and good morning, everybody. We always look at the number from the perspective of an unplanned dollar is 50% more expensive than a planned dollar. And just the nature of knowing that, which everybody knows their call out number, is a reason to go and utilize a tool such as this to try to reduce your unplanned expense. Think about all of the things that are impacted when the calmness of your business is disrupted, by these unplanned shutdowns. Anything that you can do, number one, to maintain that calmness in your business, ensuring that your team members are focused on preventative maintenance, not responding to call outs, and then just making sure that your reliability is up, which is what our customers hire us to maintain, which is exceptional generator uptime, is 100% the reason why we chose to go with the MLink platform. We've had the experience of utilizing other tools, but this particular tool gives us what we believe is an edge against the competition and frankly against unplanned downtime. The robustness of the tool, its reliability, its ease of installation, the user interface, several different factors play into making this what we feel is a great tool to provide great runtime to our customers.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, it's a great vision from a company that's got a pretty large fleet and operating. So when you have a problem, it's a order of magnitude problem. Trying to take care of all those assets out there. Appreciate that. So let's look at how we turn the corner there with IoT. So on the bottom, you had the cost of downtime, the windshield time, just a lot of chaos, or as you said, the uncalming situations that ripple through your business. With IoT, before you've ever planned your maintenance, you have prognostics. You have data that's telling you this is what I need to plan for this preventative maintenance. Now it's not just changing the oil every so many hours or going out there and checking on things. Before you go out there and check on things, you could pull this up on your dashboard or already have the analytics coming to you in daily or weekly reports. And now you're performing an intentional study of what your preventative maintenance schedule needs to look like. So the data analytics or prognostics can provide useful insights on what parts or supplies are required. And in addition to that, what the level of complexity of repair is going to be. The time a unit is down is not just loss of revenue, it's also a significant impact on the cost of operations, obviously. And Brad talked a little bit about that. And our studies have shown that one of the top contributors to OPEX for our customers is that windshield time for their technicians. Having valuable insights into their equipment health status is vital to operational efficiency. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jay to talk about strategic operations.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So, Brad, I'm going to bring you back into this discussion. I guess a two-part question here is, first, tell us a little bit about Baseline. For those that are on the call, may not be familiar with Baseline and what you guys do. But second, I know your personal background is been managing large fleets. As you mentioned, y'all have used some other IoT providers. And with Baseline having a control room, monitoring your equipment 24/7, how does MLink improve their day-to-day and streamline your business? And, what additional value does that have, soft dollars and savings and things like that?
Sure. So to tell you a little bit about what Baseline does is we're a distributed power company. Basically, we provide electricity in remote areas where there is no access to the grid or where this provides a more reliable, often less expensive alternative to grid power. We operate a very large fleet, over 1,000 units in every major basin in the United States. We have, gas-fired engines that are turning alternators and producing electricity. And that's where MLink really plugs in and gives us a leg up. So the beauty of IoT, or the beauty of what we call telematics, is that it gives us visibility where we would otherwise not have it, right? And so we have a control room staff 24 hours a day, 365 days a year that are looking to the telematics to tell them, number one, how's the unit performing? Is it up or is it down? And should you experience an unplanned downtime event, it gives you the ability to remote EDIS in, which is, allowing us to actually access the engine controller remotely, which is a huge time saver. In years past, it was, okay, the unit's down. I'm really not seeing anything from the controller other than it's an engine shutdown. Now we have the ability to actually go and remotely pull up the downtime code that prompted the unit to shut down. That is a huge time saver, not only for the customer, but for the technician that is going to be dispatched to that location. In years past, it was just driving out there thinking about what could go wrong. Now we can spend that drive time thinking about what are the troubleshooting steps that are associated with this downtime code, and more importantly, what are the parts? Do I have them on my truck? That way we can avoid some of those back and forth trips. And more importantly, get our customers online and do it from a position of confidence as a technician, as opposed to just, I think I feel, this is what the problem is.
Yeah.
Great insights. And it leads into the next part of ESG, and that's the social, which is really about the people, and to some degree, less tenured people. So you were talking about remote EDIS, Brad, and that, among many other tools, is a way for your tenured people to remote in, provide the necessary diagnostic skills when you don't have those people to spread around, and then get maybe a less skilled operator to go out there and act on or act in conjunction with a skilled person remotely. And that skilled person can help several operators from the convenience of your office or your war room, your control room you were talking about. So skilled labor is hard to find. The tenured skills are leaving our industry for greener fields, so to speak, or retiring. We must find ways to attract them and keep them. Over half of the labor population are in a generation where smartphones have been an accessory for most of their life. So these people, in most cases, are tech savvy. And when companies invest in technology, they feel like they're investing in the people, the employees. So it's really important to understand that this isn't just about the equipment and trying to keep the equipment running, but having people around for making sure that equipment stays running and attracting them to our market. Brad, I know you've talked a little bit about Baseline. It's had telemetry for a couple of years now, but have your employees adopted the telemetry and embraced it? And has it been used as a training tool for your less experienced technicians?
Yeah, absolutely. It has. It takes time. It is an absolute journey. So it's and really, if senior management is utilizing the tool, that really helps expedite the learning curve from an organizational perspective. So what do I mean by that? Well, what we've been able to do is generate trended reports that give us the opportunity to maybe point out to the technician, to that service manager, hey, right here it looks like the trend has changed. We need to answer that question. Why? Is there something different going on location? Is our customer doing something different? Did we make adjustments to the unit that are having, sort of a negative result? And that alone has just driven a level of awareness and proactiveness that by itself eliminates a lot of downtime, because folks are seeing this as a tool and not as something that's omniscient or big brotherish, right? It's not a gotcha tool. It's absolutely, how can we utilize this to drive calmness in our business and better support our customers and our technicians? And we believe MLink helps us do that because it is an exceptional tool.
Yeah, thank you for those insights, Brad. Yeah, so skilled labor, as the statistics that you see on this chart would suggest, it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but at the end of the day, the skilled labor is leaving the industry, or is just not being replaced as quickly as we need it to. So we're having to do more with less, and technology is going to help us do some of that. It's, as you mentioned, Big Brother. A lot of people look at technology as, especially robotics and things, as these are the things that are going to replace my job. I'm going to be out of a job tomorrow. No, I think you're going to be in a position where your job is a lot more focused and where you can make the most, you can add the most value to a company if you're willing to embrace it. The statistics have shown that we're losing people and we're not replacing them with the skilled labor that stays very long. The future generation that is coming in, they're looking for future technologies to make their work and life easier. So IoT and sophisticated edge control strategies are modernizing the gas patch. It happened in around 2009 when mechanical engines converted over to electronic engines and a lot more technology started to get applied. But this is the next evolutionary step of that. And we still need to do more. Mobile devices designed with intelligence can guide the workforce to what is required in order to get them engaged and keep them in the industry. So, riding on the back of technology, I think IoT is transforming the roles and responsibilities for current and future employees. And to some degree, that's going to change the way they view their work-life balance. I'm going to turn it back over to Jay to talk about that.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So, for us, we've talked about, IoT leverages insights, but MLink can improve the way we utilize our human resources. Our customers' employees are the lifeblood of their operation, and their technicians of yesterday spent much of their workday driving around to units just to discover their equipment was not operating, as Brad mentioned. This was often called the milk run, driving from site to site to check equipment to make sure systems were operationally correct. If there was a shutdown, this led to more hours behind the windshield, getting equipment, going to parts warehouses, and then driving back out to the location to fix the equipment. When the daylight hours were short, this led to evenings and weekends. So using MLink, our customers have the status to their entire operations, platform from a browser or the palm of their hand. The location of a technician can be correlated to a problem unit and be deployed within the necessary information to respond quickly and effectively, as Brad mentioned. This isn't just a reactionary mission. With MLink's diagnostic pages, users can proactively and respond to units and have warnings before a unit shuts down. So as it relates to the emissions piece, a lot of this critical infrastructure is powering something that could be related to a blowdown event. And so having the diagnostic insights before a unit shuts down, you're reducing those blowdown events. It's much easier to attract the newer, field workers when these tools and resources are in place that allow them to plan their workday, but then also plan some downtime with their family and friends. Remote working supervisors can collaborate with these field personnel with information firsthand, and it's just simple. Lowering the number of times on location, you're also then reducing the safety risks behind the wheel and lowering the risks on location by reducing the number of times employees out there. So, now that we've covered the environmental and social, I'll pass the mic back to Rick to discuss the third pillar, which is governance. Rick?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about people investment. Governance at the end of the day is accountability for these companies among their peers, other companies operating around, and where's the best place to work, and are you doing the right things as a company? That's not just for um, your stakeholders or your shareholders. That's the people who want to come to work for you want to know they're working with a company that's conscientious, they're ethical, and they invest in the people that are working for them. In other words, a great place to work. So leveraging the benefits of environmental and social metrics allow companies to create additional reporting tools for creating operational transparency for their stakeholders, shareholders, and governing agencies. Telemetry data is not only useful for predictive maintenance and corrective actions. The data collected historically and in real time can be used to create KPIs, for instance. Those can be tracked along with emissions performance for agencies that are looking for you to comply. And operational uptime and efficiencies are computed and reported for your customers, so they know they're doing business as Brad said, with companies that have an edge. They're reliable. They give me the best uptime. That's the company I want to work with, and I can tell from all the information that's reported as it relates to them being an ESG uh, conscientious company, that they're the right people to do business with. Now, days of pen charts and clipboards and manual data entry are replaced with digital facts. This means we're not manipulating data. We're not trying to fudge things so that we get through. We're not trying to do an emissions adjustment the day before an inspector is showing up, because we have data that backs up that we've stayed in compliance. We maintain compliance. We're doing all the things we need to be doing, and we can track those events when we did shut down, and give ourselves an understanding of the total footprint of the carbon emissions that were released, and use those things to get better and show that we're investing to get better. Those are the pillars of ESG. So it's pretty simple. People investing plus transparency is the governance piece. Does IoT have a direct correlation to the governance? I would say yes, because all the things that lead up to that give us that. The supporting data that companies are investing in employees and doing their part for the global interest, that's a piece of it. The math is pretty simple. You have to have and retain the right people. You have to get those people focused on the tasks that yield the best results, and you have to make the necessary investments to continue to get those results. So those are the three pillars of ESG that we think have been impacted by and will continue to be affected by IoT capabilities, as well as the underlying services that we can offer to companies like Baseline. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some sandbox items as it relates specifically to MLink. So communication protocols like Modbus, J1939, CAN communications for modern engines, and the like. Having those multiple protocols allows us to connect more of that equipment together. As Jay was speaking to earlier, the monolithic design is now being decoupled, and we're able to take all these devices in and give a greater understanding, even to legacy devices. We're able to create technologies to pull all that data together and create more information for companies like Brad's to understand not just that the engine is down in a status, but give you the ability to understand, what do I need to do about that? What is the actual cause? And I can then use that information to deploy the effective resources. Aggregating data from multiple sources on the edge rolls into the next part of it, which is the data available to me? So having modern configurability with multiple carrier support on the fly, that's huge. Staying connected is huge. Even in past situations where telemetry, whether it be terrestrial or non-terrestrial or over the air, still were not very reliable. And so having the ability to move between multiple carriers like AT&T and Verizon based on congestion, as I covered earlier, is big. And then having satellite as a fallback gives you a peace of mind and insurance. Then collecting that data real time, bringing it over multiple units to users remotely. In other words, being able to rank your systems and understand, I'm not just looking at a system's status, I'm looking at a system's status as it relates to other equipment of same build, same configuration, and is it performing optimally against all the other peers within its group. So those rankings can be really important. Receiving real-time alerts that can be configured based on conditions. So this is in addition to the equipment is operating correctly, but I'd like to know whether a unit is at its maximum horsepower. I'd like to know when it falls out of that, because now I have a non-efficient unit. Still running great. It's doing its job. It's just not doing its optimal job. And maybe I've oversized the equipment. Maybe I've undersized the equipment, and this thing has rising temperatures outside of the norm. Or I could have an equipment design issue that I need to address. Receiving real-time alerts for those configurations can be deployed in a number of ways. They can be emailed or text messaged. They can be escalated to the right people, opted in. We even have scheduled-based text messages. So if your shift is not on this week, then you don't have to receive these text messages. And then, Brad's going to be able to see that text message and see somebody responding to that by looking at his alerts page and his control room to make sure that he's getting response times that he wants to see and manage his service fleet in that way. And then Fleet Insights is kind of bringing all that together. It's comparing performance across multiple units and making sure that not only are they running, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but they're determining where the outliers are. Where should I focus my people? If everything was running great, I still have work to do. I can find places where I can create efficiencies. I can create a plan and get units that are outliers back within the group and providing the functionality that we're looking for to operate our businesses. And with that, I would say, Donovan, I think we've met all the intent that we had for the webinar, and I'd like to kick it to you to give the panel any questions that may have come in.
Thanks, Rick. To start out, this one's for Jay. How do you think experienced or veteran employees will react to this technology?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think Brad touched on it a little bit is, how has technicians adopted uh, the platform, and even Rick mentioned a lot of the newer technicians coming into this space. Um, their iPhones or their smartphones have been part of their life for a long time. The more seasoned, uh, you know, customers or even technicians, I think it's all about making the platform intuitive and making it so that it's easy to navigate, right? Um, again, as Brad mentioned, trying to make it as also meaningful, so that when they open it, it's not only easy to get to, but it makes sense and it's meaningful for them to do their job. And if it reduces their time behind the windshield, I think it's powerful, right? If they're able to get their job done faster with this, they tend to adopt it a whole lot easier. So I think certainly there's a technical hurdle for those that may not be as tech savvy, but that's where we go in, and we have a robust team within our IoT suite that is always constantly improving our dashboard to make it intuitive, to make that user adopt it easier, but then also the aftermath of what they see is meaningful. I don't know. That's just a sales guy talking, but Brad, you're a customer or you're a user of it, and you have a fleet, and you have guys trying to adopt it every day. What's your thoughts, and do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to kind of reiterate what you just said, which is if you want people to use it, make it easy to use. Make the user interface appealing, make it intuitive. Uh, Emlink checks those boxes for us, and subsequently, folks can go in and just play around and intuitively find what it is that they're looking for. That right there drives adoption. Um, if we utilize the next component, that is, is mlink ingrained in our day-to-day routines, right? If that's the source of truth that we refer back to when we start talking about the performance of our equipment, that becomes where everybody goes to look to find the answer. One thing that I think it also does is it makes troubleshooting a team sport. All right. I used to just have to go to location, and then I'd get on the phone scratching my head trying to figure it out. And I'm waiting for somebody to answer that phone call. And I'm getting all of this anxiety and this feeling of helplessness, right? Because I don't know where to turn and I need some help. Now I can have 10 different people all at once analyzing this unit remotely. And that makes me, as the technician, feel a lot more in control and a lot better supported, which means I'm probably going to tackle that issue a bit quicker and with more quality than I typically would have.
Yeah, for sure, Brad.
Yeah, I'd just close out that with a comment. You really hit the nail on the head there, Brad. A lot of our customers have come to us and said this makes mentoring an order of magnitude better for us as the more tenured skill sets are able to, instead of calling someone in a noisy environment, maybe the unit's still running, hopefully, but if it's shut down, it might be a little quieter. But they
Well,
instead of having to call them up and say, "What do you see on this screen? Go to that page. Tell me what's happening there. Go take a reading here." Instead, they go answer their own questions using remote capabilities, and then they get in touch with the operator and they say, "Here's what's going on. Here's how you can tell. See this value, see that thing, and this is what we need to do." Incredible set of tools available to them. They're embracing it.
Well, and I think one other, when we say remote, remote is such a subjective term, right? It could be my control room in Fort Worth, Texas, or it could be my living room in Greeley, Colorado, or it could be in the front seat of my pickup right next to the unit in a controlled, conditioned environment where I'm able to think clearly with my notepad and write things down. As we all know, the way it used to be done is I'm standing there at the controller and I'm taking readings, right? And I'm trying all at the same time to trend it in my head. And man, it just, all I get is what I have right there in front of me at that very minute. This allows me to trend it for days or for seconds, depending upon how rapidly you pull the data from the cloud.
Excellent. Donovan, what else
Yeah,
you have for us?
Okay, so next, for Rick, my skid is in the middle of nowhere with no cell service. Can this work for me?
Yeah, so I'll go back to my sandbox photo there where you see the rotating piece of equipment. In many cases, even when your cell phone doesn't have coverage or you have very limited bars, we find that the solution that we've built inside of MLink um, with the antennas there gives us fidelity, gives us signal where we otherwise wouldn't have it with your traditional cell phone or 4G iPad or enabled laptop. And the reason for that is if you look at the scale on your cell phone, you could have 3, maybe 4 antennas on the corners of your little cell phone. These are going to be the size, maybe a quarter inch or less on those corners, whereas this M-Link is about 8 inches by 4 inches, and that's made up of 2 boards. The bottom board is all the technology, and the top board is the antenna. And this has been specifically tuned to give us really great fidelity in areas where we're reaching out to connect with these services. So about 3x, maybe 4x capability to communicate with infrastructure in areas that are very remote. And I mentioned earlier, 4G LTE coverage has very few holes these days that we'll have problem with. And last but not least, if it's still not getting a good signal, or at this point of the day there's congestion, having a satellite connection is a great fallback insurance policy just to be able to determine the status of equipment. You may not get the kind of services because of cost for data acquisition that you'd want, but hopefully that's temporary and it would fall back to a traditional cellular infrastructure when it becomes available again.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, this is for Brad and Jay. What is the minimum number of units I need for this to make sense cost-wise for me?
I would say one. And I say that because of, we talked about these unscheduled downtimes, right? And so I don't know. I don't know, Brad. Hopefully you agree with me, but I think one is probably the number. Um, I don't, Brad, what?
Ideally, if you're going to do it, you're going to have more than one asset to deploy
Right.
MLink on. But certainly, I spoke earlier in the presentation about knowing your call out number, right? What does an unscheduled downtime event cost you? Well, what I can tell you is that eliminating one unscheduled downtime event pays for the hardware. So that's pretty compelling, and that made this decision easy for us. Now, want to be totally clear, there is a lot of behind the scenes work that is required to configure the tool because it can be as basic or as robust as you want to put in the time to make it. And so just, that's why I said you ideally want to do it for more than one, but certainly one event pays for the hardware.
Yeah, and then I would say, Brad, you're kind of hitting on another key point, and that is as you try to scale the system to help you operate your business, you should start to see dividends paying back in there as well. You've put the time in, but the reports you'll get from it, the insights, um, the the changes in efficiency. Forget about unplanned shutdowns. Just uptime with performance gains that you get give you that edge you were talking about. And so, yeah,
And,
I think you can make it scale to whatever you want.
you
You
can.
can be the simple. We have annunciator panels out there we call TTDs that they're like the check engine soon light on your car. You're not going to get tremendous amounts of data from those things because they're largely a go no go type device, but you're going to know from the RPMs, the run hours, and things like that to anticipate even that simple system. Add a few more pieces of intelligent equipment out there, and you can scale it to do whatever you want to do to run your business for sure. So
I,
I think I'd
one,
agree too. I think the number's one, but the more you can put out there, the more you can see benefit.
yeah, one other compelling um, attribute that Murphy was able to offer us is all of the programming and software engineers are stateside. The support, everybody wants to enhance or improve the tool, right? I mean, this is an infinite game. We're all on a journey here. These insights are ever changing, right? And having a support team that's domestic and easy to access really allows the end user, me as the customer, just unparalleled control about the future of where I want to take this tool. Um, that just makes you feel so much more in control and so much better supported, which is a nice feature.
That was a great comment you made, and it made me think about another piece of this, Donovan, that could answer part of the question. It's not just about the count; it's the partner. As Brad mentioned, uh, Brad gave us a bit of a challenge: standby power generation, or the term you used for it, to market your energy solution for these remote areas. That was a little bit more novel for FW Murphy, so we had to work with Brad to understand his business and his goals. But we're there with all of our compressor partners today, and we make all the other equipment, and we understand their business. So for them, we're very uniquely positioned to be a partner that doesn't just have a service, doesn't just have a modem with a service. We know how the equipment already operates and what your challenges are, and we've baked into this product the capability to hit the ground running with little or no understanding on your part of what it's supposed to do for you. Having our sales guy here, Jay Robertson, for business development, he's going to tell you how great it is for what you're doing, and it's going to sound like you're talking to somebody who works in your company because he understands your company. He's been calling on you for other equipment in the past, so that partnership is great. There's something to be said for having some of these global footprint companies that offer these types of solutions, but in the volumes we're talking about within our market, the problem is that we represent a very small piece of their puzzle in the boutique markets that we serve. So it's good to have a stateside partner that is invested in helping you grow your business. Donovan, what else you have?
I'm gonna bundle a couple of questions here. Can the Murphy M-Link system be installed on any gas lift system? What does it take to integrate on a system? And can the M-Link track blowdown events?
Yeah, that's kind of a multiple. I think I'll handle the technology piece of it, and I'll let Jay talk to some of the services capabilities that we do, or even you, Donovan, since you're IoT product manager. On the connection side, we have a number of capabilities to interface. So any system that has an RS-485 or a CAN-based connection or even Ethernet, we can interact with those devices and connect, collect, and manipulate equipment using the M-Link. So I would say gas lift system for keeping it high level is going to have some kind of controller that's using a compressor and a driver to push gas down in an effort to lift oil or whatever resource that they're going after in the carbon liquids. So yes, absolutely gas lift. I mean, we never designed this to be for standby power generation, and Brad came to us and said, I need help. These past systems that we've been using are not what we need. We've heard about MLink, and we didn't have to change any hardware. We bolted on a few things at a service level to make sure we were helping him operate his company. But I'd say we have a very robust solution, environmentally sealed and hardened for the environment that we serve, with vibration and temperatures and people who are used to dealing with big, large wrenches and tools. And it's got a single connection. And I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. There are a lot of telemetry solutions out there that use external antennas. And those external antennas typically have these very tiny gold-plated connectors that you almost have to hand tighten or you'll break them. And if you bump into them, you'll break them. And you have these little tiny wires that are easy to break. Having this all self-contained with a single harness that plugs into it and into your control panel or wiring into your equipment means that for most applications, it's going to be the right solution, the robust solution. So that's answering, I think, a piece of the technological plate. And then, Jay, I mean, as it relates to what the customer can expect from a service piece, what they're going to see, what they're going to get from it, I'll let you deal with that.
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, our application, it's good because it's agnostic. It really fits on anything as long as it's communicating RS-45, CAN, or Ethernet, TCP/IP. So, and what's awesome is there's three different ways to get the data. And so you can, we talked about data decoupling. You can attach multiple applications into one local gateway and get that. And in our customer visualization or dashboard, um, it's in a form that customers could view, and it's not specific. It's reading whatever the data says, um, from whatever it's connected to. So, the gateways are configurable. Everything is configurable. So if you're talking to a generator, a tugboat, a gas lift unit, a VRU, it's just reading whatever the the data string or the Modbus string is titled, and it's just put into a visual. And in that visual, you get some improved insights as we've been talking about. So high level, we're agnostic, and we could fit pretty much every application. So gas lift, certainly not an issue.
Did we miss anything there, Donovan?
Did you cover the blowdown piece?
Yeah, so I mean, and Rick, you could talk technically, but from a blowdown, we're getting, depending on the communication, if it's J1939, we're able to see and get ahead of shutdowns. And if it's a register in which you're monitoring a speed or a state, you're able to then correlate a blowdown to it. So, not sure the application specifically and what's available, but we could certainly expose that event, quantify that event, and alert a user based on that event.
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure I understand exactly the motivation behind the question, but I'll try to address it a couple of ways. There are a couple of things we can do with telemetry that maybe in the past you probably could do at the edge, but it may not have been able to take advantage of all the pieces of connected equipment, like the engine not talking to the compressor, not talking to the flow uh, the flow valve or the custody transfer measuring device. So I could be looking at suction pressure. The well is starting to shut in a little bit, so I'm going to lower my RPM to reduce the pressure I'm putting against trying to pull on the well, so that I don't shut it in. Give it time to recover, and then start to speed the equipment back up. Change a recycle valve, those kinds of things. So I could be monitoring those things at the edge, and if I have a sophisticated enough control system, I can manage that possibly with a control system. But I now have a device that can tie it all together and remotely reach out and slow down the equipment, change the position of a recycle valve to effectively ride through any kind of disruption to prevent the shutdown, which would lead to a blowdown in order to start the equipment back up. Now that obviously would be done manually by an operator. The other piece of it that may be a part of this motivation is as it relates to compliance. You can relate by the status of the blowdown, by the status of the starting the equipment back up because it was a result of a shutdown rather than a normal stop. Both of those might still require equalizing the pressure in the equipment to restart it, so a blowdown. In those cases, you'll have those in your data reports, and you can track how many blowdown events have occurred as a result of, and if it's in a region where you have non-attainment and things like that, where you have specific reporting obligations, you'll be able to use those direct reports that you get, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly, and by region to be able to give those to the proper agencies as part of your reporting obligations. So hopefully that addresses the question's intent.
Thanks, Rick. This next question is for Brad. In regards to the war room scenario, how impactful do you see the war room affecting your FSTs day to day? Did this change the downtime length?
Absolutely, it did. So earlier I spoke a little bit about remote EDIS. The way that it used to be done was you would either get the phone call from the customer that says, "Hey, I need service," and you would dispatch a technician. You would often ask the customer, "Hey, what are the codes that you're seeing on the panel?" Sort of that second call mindset. In the power generation world, it's a first call mindset because of just the order of magnitude of our reliance on electricity. There's just a palpable difference in the customer's sense demand for your sense of urgency. So a first call model is what we employ. What that allows us to do now that we have MLink on our units is, number one, to go in and really analyze, okay, is this a mechanical shutdown or could this potentially be a production shutdown? We're then able to reach out to the customer proactively and have a conversation before we roll a truck. In the event that we do need to roll a truck and everything's pointing in that direction, we're now able to look at the downtime codes, the diagnostic messages, the trends. Okay, did your coolant temperature spike? Okay, do you make sure you got a belt and a water pump on your truck? You know, those kind of things to ensure that the technician is equipped and is thinking through what he's about to execute as opposed to just showing up and then utilizing all of that time to sort of diagnose and troubleshoot. So it has made the control room vastly more integrated into our business and really a tool that is utilized by the technicians as opposed to sort of the overarching room or department that just spits out, work. So they're an integral part. They're kind of a heartbeat. They also help us open up work orders and do all kinds of things from a control of work and keep things organized. So really valuable tool.
Thanks so much for that, Brad. And thank you for joining us as a guest panelist. It's great to have a real live customer here to provide some insights instead of just from us sales and techie people on IoT gateways in general and the MLink. I think that's going to be the last question that we cover here. I want to let all of our attendees know, thank you for coming and attending with us to listen to our presentation. And any questions that we did not get to, our moderator will get back with you. Donovan Minkler will get back with you with any collected questions and answers from one or more of the panelists to make sure that your question got covered. Jessica, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close things out.
I think you covered it. Just thank you, everyone, for joining us today. To learn more about MLink, you can go to our website at fwmurphy.com/MLink. And if you have additional questions or would like to discuss how MLink can work for you, please send an email to fwm-info@doverprecision.com. Thank you for being here.